This is Good Morning Nigeria. But before we begin our review of President Tinubu's state visit to Qatar, let's take this background report by Oyeyemi Ajayi.
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's two-day visit to Qatar was at the instance of the Emir of the State of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim Al Thani. It was also for the opportunity to further strengthen cooperation between the two nations in several areas. No doubt, Nigeria is highly recognized as an important and strategic ally on its own and within the context of its role in the regional affairs, therefore becoming a toast of many for strengthened relations. President Tinubu participated in Business and Investment Forum that brought together top-level executives in both the private and public sectors of Nigeria and Qatar in advance cross-sectoral opportunities for mutually beneficial growth and development. At the meeting, 7 historic bilateral agreements on investment promotion were signed to open a gateway for leveraging the potential of mutual cooperation in pivotal sectors of education, enterprise development, investment promotion, youth empowerment, mining, tourism, and sports. Also, regulation of employment of workers with the government of Qatar, establishment of a joint business council between the Qatar Chamber of Commerce and Industry and Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, NASIMA. The President, however, made Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edu, leader of the Nigerian government team that would interface with Qatari authorities in investment identification and implementation moving forward. Investors were assured that the Nigerian economy and its systems are being reformed and upgraded while pledging the removal of all bottlenecks standing in the way of profitable and legitimate enterprise, as it tells investors to report public officials who demand bribes from them. So far, how can the two-day visit indeed be assessed? Can we say it was a fruitful one? How soon can we expect the gains from the visits? Guests in our studio will be responding to these questions as they discuss President Bola Tinubu's visit to Qatar.
Yeah, thank you very much, Oyeyemi Ajayi, for that background report. And joining us to review the President Tinubu's state visit to Qatar, we have with me in the studio Ambassador Dauda Danladi, former Nigeria High Commissioner to Pakistan. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much for having me this morning.
Good.
Program, and we also have joining us via Zoom from the United Kingdom, Abdul Kabir Aliu, a businessman. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, let's kickstart the conversation this morning with Ambassador Dauda Danladi. What is your impression of President Tinubu's visit to Qatar? Tell us, what are the likely benefits and what is Nigeria going to actually gain from that visit?
I think I would rather start by pointing out the essence of President Aswaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu's drive to boost trade and investment around the globe with Nigeria. Over the past 9 months, the President has set the pace. He has set the scale for marketing the potentials of Nigeria across the globe, for debunking the negative narratives about Nigeria. And I think that has resulted in attracting a whopping $30 billion foreign direct investment into Nigeria. And once that funds start trickling into Nigeria, it will change the economic fortune of this country. And I think, let me say quickly, that he has set the scale for measuring the performance of our embassies and missions. We expect that our embassies and missions will now pursue economic and citizenship diplomacy. And going forward, the essence of his visit to Qatar, let me remind you that Nigeria and Qatar enjoy cordial bilateral relations. Nigeria and Qatar were members of the OIC, members of OPEC, all right, even though 2019 Qatar pulled out on the grounds that it wanted to concentrate on the natural gas production. Qatar has also established its presence in Nigeria. It has various ongoing humanitarian projects in the country, in the areas of education, the areas of infrastructure development. For example, Kaduna State, for example, is building an economic city in Kaduna. It's providing mass housing to about 500 less privileged people in Kaduna State. And then in Kebbi, Katsina, Zamfara, it's also assisting underprivileged children. In the Northeast, it has established its presence. It has contributed a lot. I was so impressed that the president took the governor of Borno State, Mr. Dwarat, who also paid a visit to the Doha Humanitarian Organization, one of the leading humanitarian organization and development organization in Doha. And Zulu secured about 8 projects, ongoing projects in the Northeast. You see, Qatar is right now has provided scholarship and is affecting out of school children, about 140,000 of them, and has a target of 500,000. So, in a nutshell, or in a resume, Qatar is doing its best, it's contributing a lot, and I think the essence of the president's visit is to strengthen and to deepen that bilateral relations, and which has culminated now in the signing of various agreements with Qatar. The challenge will be the implementation strategy. We look forward to a synergy between the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and relevant ministries to ensure that these agreements that have been signed are actually implemented. The Renewed Hope agenda should be a motivating factor for civil servants in this organization to be committed to ensure that these agreements are not put on the shelves to gather dust, as was the case in the past. Okay. So we look forward to robust engagement under the coordinating minister, the Minister of Finance, so that these agreements in the areas of education, the areas of employment, in the areas of youth and sports empowerment and development, the combating of illicit drugs, trafficking of illicit drugs, that it will see the light of the day, and of course it will be of benefit to Nigeria. Let me quickly say this, that Qatar, just in the recent past, announced a package of $5 billion to invest in Africa. And I think the president was, we could say he was really smart by quickly undertaking this trip to make sure that he cashed in. And I think it will be to the benefit of Nigeria, and it is also a challenge to our embassies and missions around the world, around the globe, that we should not be concentrating on just consular services, but economic and citizenship diplomacy. That should be the promotion. Debunking the negative narratives about Nigeria, promoting the huge potentials of Nigeria to the world, so that we can advance, move this country forward.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Yes.
I mean, you have highlighted, I mean, some of these. Okay.
Yes. I sort of see a paradigm shift, you know, in the area of diplomacy with this government, and President Tinubu is so emphatic about the fact that Nigeria is now open for business. Wherever he goes to, he say Nigeria is open for business. But one thing that struck me in the Qatar visit is, you know, the emphasis on clipping the wings of corruption when it comes to bringing investors in this country. And he said, report to me if anybody asks you for bribe, and I will deal with them decisively. That was a strong statement coming from the president.
I think the president is serious from his body language and from his pronouncements, and really corruption has been one of the major causes of that created, that certified really investment. When investors come, they become frustrated if there is high level of corruption in the system. If you take that out, then of course you have opened the country. And I think what the president is doing is sending a warning signals, and we hope to see a change of attitude. I think the New Hope agenda, we Nigerians should support this New Hope agenda so that it will be a different ball game when dealing with the international community.
All right, thank you very much, Ambassador. Now let's go to Abdul Kadri in via Zoom from the United Kingdom. Abdul Kadri, from your own view, your perspective, how will the visit enhance business and investment opportunities for the two countries? You as a business person.
Thank you. Nigeria is blessed at this moment to have a president coming from the private sector that also rule the largest state. If Lagos State has been a country of its own, it will have the largest economy in Africa. This is a great blessing to the country. More importantly, Mr. President understands the importance of having strengthening the economy of Nigeria. He knows that Nigeria in the past few years, most of our economic policy have not been in line with the global policies. And I think this is why the president has embarked on trip to countries that he knows that it is easier for them, that they understand, they have the background of the opportunities that are open for business in Nigeria. Mr. President going to Qatar and other countries has exposed Nigeria to the international world to know that things in Nigeria are changing and Nigeria are gradually moving to the global market. You know, one of the statements that Mr. President made in Qatar was to talk about the unification of foreign exchange, openness of that there's no barrier in coming in and there's no more barrier in going out. We know in the past few years or few months, it has been difficult for you to repatriate your currency. And what the president has done now, it is easier for you to bring your money in and to also bring your money out. And also, one of the gains I have seen is that Mr. President took some of us that our business have the potential to cross border Nigeria, and also to the Qatari government also to brought to the room people in Qatar that they have the potential, so they are willing to come to Nigeria. Bear in mind that Qatar has they have 2 or 3 flights coming to Nigeria every day. They have a strong embassy in Nigeria, which also coordinates some other countries around us. So they have gathered enough intelligence to know that Nigeria is a country where if you invest, there's potential for you to have a significant return on your investment. I think Mr. President going to Qatar is of good things to Nigeria, and we businessmen, we should take advantage of it to ensure that we close in on some of the side discussion that we had during the visit. Thank you.
You were part of the visit. You were in Qatar, and there was a drive by the president to ensure that the youth of Nigeria, dig into the negotiations by the Qatari government and Nigeria. Let's have your thoughts, on the main takeaways, at the summit. And we're listening to Ambassador Eladi, saying that the drive to boost trade and investment in Nigeria is behind most of the trips that President Tinubu has taken, and we're looking at, changing the narrative, negative narrative about Nigerians and especially Nigerian youths, and there are, almost $30 billion, is coming into this country through businesses. Let's have your view of how the summit went, and they talked about implementation, which is very, very key to all these summits that the president goes to.
First and foremost, the first thing the president did was to introduce Malam Nuhu Ribadu to the Qatari investors and Qatari government. Malam Nuhu Ribadu did very well as chairman of EFCC, and he got so many awards. So one of the issues that most developed countries have with developing nations is corruption. And for Mr. President to have appointed someone of that background as NSA, we know in this part of this world, and also in the GCC country, corruption is seen as terrorism financing. And for us to have someone like that at the NSA, it means that Nigeria's position will be strengthened in the fight against terrorism and fight against corruption. The most important thing is that every investor who want to invest where your money is secured, not only on the province side of it, your money is secured. And secondly, there is ease of movement of money in and ease of taking your money out. And secondly, people want to invest where there will be a significant return on their investment. If you see Qatar, the population is about 2.9 million people. The kind of wealth the country has, where would they invest? And the most importantly is that Qatar GDP today is almost $200 billion with population of 2.9 million. You see a lot of investment in Qatar. You see so many hospitals built by foreigners in Qatar. Most of the outlets are built by non-Qatari. So we feel, and the president knows, that Qatari, they have interest in Africa. Most importantly, they have interest in Nigeria if the economic policy and the government policy is conducive for this kind of investment to come. Mr. President have shown them that Nigeria is open for business, and Mr. President also to open the area where they can easily come to invest. For example, the Minister of Trade, Minister of Mine, elaborated minerals that we have. Nigeria has one of the best quality lithium in Nigeria. And we have other solid minerals that most of these countries are looking for. The labor is cheap in Nigeria, so we feel this trip has exposed Nigeria to the global world. And for some of us as a businessman, we have seen the difference. Each time Mr. President travel out of the country, we see that the next time we want to do business in another country, we are being welcomed more. Me in particular, we have seen a lot of advantages and a lot of merit of all this travel. And it's required because more or less before May 29, 2023, Nigeria is like a closed economy. Dollars is pegged at artificial rate, but now it is market forces. And so many other reforms that Mr. President is always using this opportunity to explain to the outer world. I believe in the next couple of months, Nigeria will start to see the significance of all this trip. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aliyu, for your thoughts there that Mr. President is actually leading the pack to open up Nigeria to the outside world for business. Ambassador Danladi, let me come back to you. I mean, several visit has been done, especially by this, carried out by this present administration led by Mr. President. And a lot of agreements, have been, signed and many contracts entered into. But what exactly, what gaps do you notice in all these agreements? Do you notice any gap at all?
Well, I think it is too early to talk about gaps, but we are looking forward to the implementation of these agreements. You see, when you establish, for example, the Joint Business Council that was established, we need to see how the Ministry of Trade and Investment, as well as other relevant organizations, with our embassy in Qatar and the Qatari embassy here in Nigeria, how they will synergize to ensure that the leadership of this council is established so that they can now work to achieve their objectives. Because in the past, my experience is that in the past we had this joint chambers of commerce agreement, say between Pakistan chambers of commerce and Nigeria. And since I left about almost 8 years ago, it has not taken off. It is still on the drawing board. So we expect that this will be a game changer based on Mr. President's determination to maximize the potentials of Nigeria with other nations. Going forward, again, the issue of employment. You see, today, based on the data we have from our embassy, we have just about 7,000 Nigerians that are working in Qatar. And out of the population, as was said by the businessman, out of the population of about 2.2 million people, the real Qataris are no more than 500,000. The rest are all foreigners. Okay? So, you may recall also that in 2022, Qatar made a presentation to our Ministry of Labor that, look, we need more professionals that will come and work in Qatar. And I think possibly attention was not given much, but you can see now that the president has taken the bull by the horn. Already an agreement has been signed on the regulation of migrant workers. So exactly, possibly, yes, exactly, about the youth. So and the president has marketed the Nigerian youth effectively. He said we have a vibrant, well-educated youth, and that the few bad eggs should not be a gauge of the Nigerian youth. In any country, you have the bad eggs, and I think this will open great opportunity for our youth. Again, in the other areas of sport development, youth and sport development, Qatar is providing a lot of sporting facilities. Qatar hosted the World Cup of recent, if you recall, the last World Cup was in Qatar, and Qatar is promoting sport development. And looking at the population of youth in this country, I think it is a move in the right direction to get our youth fully engaged, provide the opportunities to our youth, economic opportunities, as well as sport developments that would, again, place Nigeria among the top world sporting countries and even the foreign exchange. So basically it still boils down to the implementation. We hope that these 7 agreements will see the light of the day. The relevant agencies will be there.
What institutions do you think would you advise that the government should put on ground to ensure that there is proper implementation of all these agreements?
I think the president has already directed the coordinating minister. So I would be looking at an interministerial committee that will put in place, and that the supervision of the minister to ensure that these agreements are implemented, to ensure that the necessary strategy are put in place, to ensure that there is closer contacts with the Qataris government and officials, so that this agreement would be fully implemented. And I think there should be a monitoring and evaluation, okay, of this agreement. And I believe the coordinating minister will put a monitoring and evaluation team that will review and to see what progress have been made, where are the bottlenecks, okay, and if these bottlenecks are addressed, then we'll be able to make progress. You see, Qatar, at the international global stage, has established itself as a diplomatic heavyweight, because it is mediating in various conflicts around the world. And Qatar has, even though it is a small country, it is now occupying a strategic geopolitical position in the Middle East. You see, Qatar was a leading negotiator between even the United States and Iran, which led to the release of prisoners between these two countries. The freezing of Iran's $6 billion in South Korea. Qatar was instrumental to release of these funds to Iran. Qatar is also mediating right now the ongoing Israeli and Hamas war. Qatar is in Libya. Qatar is in Sudan. Qatar is every Nigeria. So I think Mr. President's diplomatic dexterity should be acknowledged in identifying strategic countries that we should deepen our bilateral relations, so that Nigeria would open up its huge potentials to the world towards maximizing and boosting our economy.
Indeed. Let's bring in, then you're talking about, policy direction of this present administration. Let's bring him, Aliu, into this conversation. We know Qatar is a gas nation, just like Nigeria, and of course, they have much less population than we have. And would you say that the signing of the executive order on oil and gas reforms by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu yesterday was a fallout of this conversation that was taken in Qatar for investment in the oil and gas sector in Nigeria?
I don't know, but there are direct link if you read through the executive order the president just signed, is to reduce the contracting period to maximum 6 months. So what it means is that any of the companies, either local or international companies, embarking on any project in Nigeria, you don't have any excuse that the contract approval process has been delayed. If it takes you 6 months to execute a contract and then you do it, then the president has demonstrated that Nigeria is open to business. You mentioned of Qatar is a small country and is also a gas producing economy. Nigeria has a lot of gas reserve, but some of these bottlenecks in the past, they've not made it easy for people to invest. So what president have practically done is to remove all the barriers so that nobody have any excuse to say this is the reason why they cannot invest. Nigeria is also part of the country that is championing the utilization of more gas. And Nigeria is I see Nigeria as a more gas economy than oil economy. So signing the executive order will assist, and also will encourage foreign investors to come into Nigeria.
Aliyu, let me stay with you. You as a business person, you have highlighted a lot of business opportunities that are open to Nigeria's businessmen.
Women.
And women, okay. How would you advise them to take advantage of all these opportunities? We have a lot of potentials, which is open to us. So what would be your advice to the businessmen and women?
So the foremost is what I will advise anybody trying to renew or build his business is for you to read the body language of your leader. The body language of the president we have currently is to promote Nigeria, is to make Nigeria a bigger economy, and also to create a sustainable development in the country. The first thing we should see from all this trip is for us to see the minds of the foreigners, the minds of the foreign investors that they have pool of funds that they may bring to Nigeria, to see how we show them opportunities that are in Nigeria. For example, we're an oil producing company, and we're into oil trading. We need to drill more wells. We need to produce more. But there are limited capitals outside there. The Western world, the developed nations, they don't believe in oil anymore. They don't fund oil anymore. But a country like Qatar, that their main primary source of revenue is coming from oil, they are always interested in funding oil-related transactions. And by the way, Heritage Oil is a Qatari company. They are doing well in Nigeria at the moment. And it's also, all these kind of opportunities is for the external world to see how Nigerian companies are doing. The president has been going around with some of the successful Nigerian enterprises, some of the successful Nigerian businessmen, to see that even though we have our own challenges, but we still have companies in Nigeria that they are able to do well, and they are even able to compete in other economies. Some of us who are doing business outside Nigeria, we are doing well. And at the same time, we need this foreign investment to come. The most important thing is that economy is built. It's like you have a city, that the only people that live in that city are locals of that city. Then there's a problem. Just as the ambassador just mentioned, Qatari population is over 2 million, but the Qatari are just 500,000. So the other 1.2 million, 1.7 million or 2.2 million foreigners is a sign that the economy is doing great. And I think this is what Nigeria should also focus on. How do we bring foreign investors in? We need to bring each funds to the economy, irrespective of kind of economy that we have. We need the foreigners to come. We need the countries like Qatar that we are same mind to come in and invest in the country. And I think this is the opportunity and the platform which Mr. President is showcasing presently for Nigeria, which I think all of us should encourage him. The media, especially those people on the social media, should see the positive side of all this trip, so that whoever that opens the internet, you see the good things, and there's a reason why you feel if you come to Nigeria, you are secure, despite the fact that the government is making all efforts. The people in the private sector too, they need to also support the government in ensuring that Nigeria become an investment destination for people. Thank you.
So much, Aliyu, for your thoughts there, that Nigerians should begin to see the positive side of this visit so that we can take advantage of it for the benefits of our great nation. Well, while the conversation was on, where we have the minister, the coordinating minister of health and social welfare, Professor Ali Pate, join us in the studio. You're welcome, Honorable Minister.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for having me.
Okay. Professor, you were one of the entourage of the president to Qatar. Can you just give us an overview of the visit?
Yes. I think it was a very successful visit by the president to the government of Qatar and the people of Qatar. He opened a huge door for Nigeria and for Nigeria-Qatar relationships. I think that's the role of the president, to open the door. The relationship that has been built just by this visit, I think, is strong, it's great. It's a trusting relationship, and there are several interfaces in that engagement. And the delegations on both sides were able to interact. And I think that's a basis for a very mutually beneficial interchange, commerce, investments, and all kinds of other aspects of the relationship. Several agreements were signed. We were in Qatar with His Excellency Mr. President and led by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, which were in 7 main areas, and others are following suit. One on education cooperation. They have a huge pool. They have an education city, higher education. There are some Nigerian students, and more will be going to Qatar. In fact, some of our students in Sudan may be translocated who were affected by the conflict to finish their schools in Qatar. So that's just one example, and there's several other ramifications of our relationship in the education sector. A joint council, for instance, was put together between the Qatari side and the Nigeria side for businessmen and women to interchange, to find investment opportunities, to network together, and the Qatari side will come to Nigeria. That's a very tangible, practical way forward coming out of that. Regulation of employment between government of Qatar and Nigeria, that unlocks a huge potential for our youth, who are, as the president said, very educated, very vibrant, to find opportunities to contribute to Qatar. Qatar is a country that is strong by itself, but it's relatively small compared to Nigeria. The pool of Nigerian youth can participate in the Qatari labor market, but they have to be well regulated. And without a regulation, they can be subject to all kinds of deeds that may not be in our interest. So I think that's also a good step. Sectoral agreements, whether it's on sports development, the president was there to give a trophy for a horse racing event. That just symbolizes the potential in the sports arena. Again, our youthful population can play a role in there. In terms of youth development itself, there are areas that we can deepen. In terms of tourism and special events, there is a whole arena of developmental tourism, conference tourism. We tend to go to Qatar. Could we also have some of those to try to reduce that? In our case, in the health sector, we spent time in Qatar to visit some of the hospitals. Qatar is the #1 health system in the Arab world by various ranking. It is at the very top. Even a small country, its health system is one of the best in the Arab world. It's ranked #1. So we visited a quaternary hospital called Sidra Medicine, incidentally led by a Nigerian physician who is also the CEO of that hospital. Saw what they were doing. It's a quaternary hospital for women and children, and there are opportunities there for fellowships, for exchange of training our own health workers in Qatar so they can come back. We visited Hamad Medical Corporation, which is a very large corporation that handles all their hospitals, 18 entities sort of within that, with some of the governors that went. We saw the trauma and emergency centers there. There are opportunities for our physicians, surgeons to also learn and come back here, and for them to agree not to recruit them when they go there. And we have been able to start that conversation. In addition, we saw something very interesting, that Qatar has non-communicable diseases. And we here in Nigeria, we have a small body of non-communicable diseases. But that burden is rising: hypertension, diabetes, strokes, heart disease. But our health system we're not trying to invest under Mr. President's direction in strengthening our health system and making it resilient. And what Qatar are doing is that they have a Qatar Rehabilitation Institute, a facility dedicated in an integrated manner with the patient at the center that takes folks who have had either traumatic disability or from stroke or other conditions and rehabilitate them in a very, very interesting way. And we have learned from that, and I think there's opportunity for even our physiotherapists, some of them, to be able to go and learn so that we can be able to leapfrog in our system. And finally, in the area of gene therapy, everybody knows sickle cell disease is a major issue in the African population, and not only here in Nigeria, but all over the world. The Ghana are beginning to make moves in terms of stem cell as well as gene therapy over time. And folks at Sidra Medicine, for instance, moving in that direction. So, including sickle cell disease and thalassemia. The Arab world has a lot of thalassemia, a kind of genetic disease, because of the nature of the population there. So, there are opportunities over time that can begin to unfold in health. Beyond all of that, at the global level, just to have a mutually reinforcing voice between Nigeria and Qatar is itself important. Because we have a key country, which is an influential country, not only in the region, but also despite its size on the global stage. And you have the largest African black country in the world, Nigeria. So all in all, Mr. President's role is to open doors. And I tell you, by his visit to Qatar with the delegation, he opened a very large door. Now it's up to us as Nigerians, as business folks, as government, to keep the door open, but to use the opportunity, and for the Qataris to also use the opportunity, because that's all he can do.
Yes.
But he has opened that door.
Yeah. And he has said that Nigeria is open for business, actually. And, you know, due to the ban on issuance of visa by the UAE, which hitherto used to be the medical tourism capital, you know, for Nigerians to go there to seek medical tourism. It has brought Qatar's medical, you know, expertise to the fore here, and a lot of Nigerians go there for treatment. So, was there any, you know, agreement as part of the discussions on the table that, you know, that would enhance medical tourism in Nigeria, or sort of bring this expertise back to Nigeria to ensure that Nigerians don't take our money to Qatar? As you know, it's a lot of money, billions of naira goes into the Qatari, you know, economy from Nigerians seeking treatment in Qatar.
Yeah. Our vision is to have Nigeria be a hub by itself for medical tourism. Within 3 hours time from Abuja, there are at least 350 million population. So there's a real potential for Nigeria to be a hub for medical tourism. And with the medical centers of excellence, with many of the infrastructural investment that the president is making, we should get there. And in the sub-region of West Africa, folks already come to Nigeria for medical care. Yeah. With the Qatari population, for things that are not available here, whether it's gene therapy, until we make it available, potentially folks can be able to go there. But importantly, the capacity exchange. We discussed with the Minister of Health of Qatar, because we served on a board with the Minister of Health of Qatar, and we spent time discussing those interfaces. And we picked the knowledge transfer angle, which the President had already laid the basis, because he said, look, we're a very capable country. And so there will be opportunities for our surgeons, for designated specialists, to be able to go for short-term or fellowship opportunities in Qatar. And we will encourage that, provided they come back.
They come back. That's
at the end of the day.
Yes.
And I believe the Qatari, when they told me that, look, given the vision, and we're doing it in a very constructive manner, that when they take our folks to train, they will agree with us that they will not employ them, so that they come back, because we will use public resources to train them with the hope that they will come back and serve in this country, because the president is investing heavily in health infrastructure, hospital infrastructure, equipment, enabling the health workforce here, adjusting the financing available in our health system. So with that, you can see over the next 2-3 years that Nigeria's dismal state of health will begin to improve. Even though it will take time for it to be fully addressed like we see in other countries. But we'll be on that path. And with that, the partnership with the Qataris, I think, will be a help for us in that direction. Medical tourism is a global phenomenon. People live from the US, go to other countries to get medical care. Live from the UK, go to other countries, even in Africa, to get medical care. Our vision is that Nigeria, with the incredible potential that we have in youth, in human resources, we have doctors in the diaspora, nurses in the diaspora, pharmacists in the diaspora. We train our health workers very well. And because we train them very well, that's why they are attractive to go elsewhere. So now the president is investing to make the health system here able to keep them. And we believe that other countries, and hopefully one day even from Qatar, they can come here for medical tourism. But it's something that it's in our vision and it's possible. But we have to believe in ourselves. And the president kept saying that. It's all in the mindset. He has opened this great door for us. We Nigerians across the country, across sectors, across all kinds of artificial divides, we can unify around that vision and put national interests at the center. And say, how do you expand this economy in partnership with the Qataris and all the sectoral windows he has opened to make use of this to grow our economy? Because if Nigeria is prosperous, everybody benefits. If Nigeria is poor, everybody suffers.
Thank you so much,
Everybody suffers indeed.
Honorable Minister, for giving us an overview of the visit. And it gladdens my heart, actually, because, I mean, everywhere you go, you find Nigerians there, and they are excelling in their different professions, just like you mentioned, even in health in Qatar. That's good news for us. So let me come back. Let me bring back the ambassador, Ambassador Danladi. A lot of people have questioned the fact that why should Nigeria be going to Qatar, looking at the size of the country, that we can have 80 Qatars in Nigeria, going by the landmass and the population. So why not, venture to other bigger countries in Europe, in America, and all that? And what's your take on that first, before I go to the next question?
Well, I think why are we interested in Qatar, despite its small size? Qatar, as I have said, using soft power, has been able to establish itself as a regional force in the Middle East. Qatar, when you look at the vast natural resources that Qatar has, in terms of gas, you are looking at about 885 trillion cubic feet of gas. And they've been able to develop this gas. That is why they opted out of OPEC to concentrate on development of gas. But we know that there are other externalities that led to that exit, following the sanction imposed by Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states. Thank God that sanctions have been lifted. Qatar was blessed also with a ruling elite that are committed, that have plan and have vision. And they have been able to carve a niche within the diplomatic world. They are a heavyweight, looking at the various mediation role that Qatar is playing around the globe. Qatar is in Venezuela, Qatar is sorting out the Hamas-Israeli war, Qatar is in Libya, Qatar is in Sudan, right? And that has put Qatar in a vintage position that Nigeria's geopolitical strategic position in Africa lends credence and to Nigeria tilting, deepening the bilateral relations existing between Nigeria and Qatar. And that is the essence. It is not this. You see, you can be a very big country, but if you do not have the strategic weight within the diplomatic cycle, then of course your influence within the diplomatic sphere will not attract other countries. So I think it has to do with Qatar's geopolitical strategy in the Middle East and at the global stage.
Okay, thank you. Nigeria has always been, on the map, on the global map, because of what we dish out to other countries around the world. Nigeria is a country where anything you need, you come, you get it. If it's expertise, if it's the youth, if it's, whatever, you come to Nigeria, you get it. And I'm bringing Aliu into this conversation now. You've had the Minister of Health talk about, bringing youth on board as part of on the negotiating table between Qatar and Nigeria, and making sure that they tap into the youth population in this country. But the question I need to, okay, I hear that he's not there, but I believe when he comes back, he'll be able to answer this question. Now, let me come back to the Minister of Health, Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare. He's seated here in the studio. Let's have your main takeaways of this visit. And yes, no plan is perfect. So let's have your idea of the gaps that you notice in this agreement. And Ambassador Danladi has talked about implementation, which is key. And we all have to acknowledge the fact that at times it is a problem in this country.
I think to earn trust, you need to act and get things done. And the president, while in Qatar, has signed a key member of his team, the Coordinating Minister of Economy, to anchor the implementation of some of these agreements, and for the Business Council from Qatar to also visit here after Ramadan to be able to sit down. The key is for members of the business community here in Nigeria to identify potential arenas where they want to go even faster in the various sectors, whether it's oil and gas, whether it's in mining. The president mentioned a lot about lithium, the type of lithium that we had, and the Minister of Mines was there. He made a very strong case for that, but in a way that is also beneficial to the Nigerian economy, so that we add the value here. We also, not just extractive. It's not just extractive relationship, but one that also creates and develops some economic value here for folks to now go deeper. That is not the president to do. That's for business folks. That's for financiers. That's for regulators. That's for us on the president's team to bring those steps to fruition. If we can move in the next 12 months and be able to have 2-3 key steps, then we'll have earned even more the trust and confidence of the Qataris. And as the ambassador said, the strategic position of Qatar and our strategic positioning makes this almost a very nice, almost a perfect fit in terms of where we go, in line with the president's vision for a prosperous country. So I think the key for us is how we execute, and the president has opened the door. Now let's hunker down. Let's run away from any sort of distractions and other noise that may be there, but focus on getting to move. And it is the industry. You can't sit around and just wait for investor to come and actually give you money. You have to have an investable idea. It has to be market viable in the context of the market. If there are issues that are going to be on the way, the president was very clear. He's here to solve problems. So if there are any issues, he will check those obstacles. And I believe that he will. So, but people have to do the work. It's not also free money. The Qataris are very clear. They've got huge pools of resources. They want to invest. And in fact, made the point that the resources they have belongs to them today, but also belongs to future generations. So they have to invest in ways that, in fact, is sustainable, is their returns on that investment. So on our side, the industry players also can hunker down. The president has opened this wide door for us. So how do you capitalize on that? And be very honest. Display high level of integrity. Develop viable investment tracks along the lines of the agreements and take them forward. For us in health, we're very clear. We did pick up the training arena in health as an area that we will start an interchange. There's some training that we have here, and I believe that a team from Qatar will also visit Nigeria to explore more of what we have and what they can take back, so that we can start to move. And at the global level, Qatar is the current president of the World Health Organization's executive board, for instance, the chair of that board. And at the global level, there will be coordination and mutual reinforcement of our key messages. I know that they will be very supportive of Nigeria's positions, and Nigeria will be supportive of Qatari position. That's the way global health diplomacy takes place as well. So we do have a few sets of things that we will pursue and will execute on. And in each of those sectors, as the president's team who were there know, in each of those sectors, folks will start to go deeper and say, how do we execute on these agreements? But he has done his part. He's opened the door as the president. And now we get in and get it done.
Yeah, a lot of people have noticed that, okay, the president is leading the pack. He's so excited about what he's doing. And going from one country to the other, opening the doors of opportunities for Nigerian business, men to take advantage of, and that we're yet to see more. We're going to see more in very, very soon. That it shows the commitment of this present administration to open the doors for foreign investment, and also for Nigerian youth in particular, so that they can begin to tap into their potentials. You being one of the member of the cabinet, what do you emphasize with all these business agreement, bilateral relations that Nigeria is entering into? What do you see? When do we begin to see the fruits of all these engagements?
I think Nigeria is a great investment destination if you look at what it has today and what it will be in the future. We are at an inflection moment now with the president's vision that has been articulated and his own leadership, the actions that he has begun to take. For several years, I think it's fair to say that we had been inward looking, more inward looking. And when we engage externally, it has not been with a clear focus to get the deals done. What this president is doing is opening the spaces and mobilizing domestically the industry players as well, so that the interchange between investors and the opportunities that we have here becomes clearer, and sifting through and removing barriers. Things like corruption. The perception out there is that there's a lot of corruption. But the president is very clear that he will take decisive action on those areas, and that is very reassuring to the investors to say, look, this is not what you had been hearing for years. This is a new direction. There are other institutional challenges, and that he is addressing them, whether in the monetary policy, or in the fiscal policy, or even in our sector, in the health sector, in the infrastructure sector, but showing the big picture that we have 220 million population growing at 3.2% per annum, 7 to 8 million Nigerians added every year. They are very well educated Nigerians, very diverse, with a profound, very significant diaspora that is very educated in the United States, in Canada, in Europe, even in Qatar. And he mentioned it there because in the two hospitals that we went, there were Nigerians at a very senior level in those. One of them is the CEO of the Center of Medicine. So it sort of shows what is in place. What this country needs is to follow the leadership that this president is showing. That look, there's a path, and there will be a lag, because the deterioration didn't take place in 6 months or 12 months. It's over time, and it's us collectively, Nigerian political elite, the economic elite. I don't think we can extricate ourselves from the results of what we are seeing, because we were here and observed how things got to where they are today. But now we have an opportunity that we've gotten ourselves where we are. And we've got a president who said, okay, this is the vision, and I'm willing to stand up for it. And he's doing his part. So let's sort of quieten down and build that consensus as a people and say, look, we need to grow this economy up to the 5%, 6% that is possible, year on year for the next 10 years. Imagine how many people can be gotten out of poverty. But to do that, you need to have the investments. And the investment gap right now, we may not have all the capital for those investments to drive that growth. But other actors in the world can invest, and that's the nature of the economy of the world, that investment moves from one place to the other. But how can we be a pioneer destination for investments? And that is why the president has spent time going to countries wherever he sees. And I have to say, very impressive to see how he has been tireless in being able to open and unlock those. But it is for us as Nigerian political and economic elite to now hunker down and do the work. It's not free lunch. Work has to be done. And that has, exactly, and folks have to do that work so that you actually get those investments and but he's done his part. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. The president has opened doors. Let's bring in Aliu now into the conversation from the UK. Aliu, you've listened to the minister talk about the agreement signed in Qatar and also the implementation policies that should be able to, move these agreements forward. He also said the president has opened doors, especially for Nigerian youths. But the question is, are Nigerian youths ready to take up that responsibility?
So if you listen to my introduction, first thing I said is that the president is coming from the private sector, and he has the experience of how the private and the public sector work together. The most important thing for every economy is for you to have hope. The president has brought hope, and he has also been able to showcase that even though we are a challenged nation, we can come out of this crisis, and which you are seeing the result already. The most important thing is that the youth, what do they want? They want a prosperous country. They want gainfully employed, either as a paid or to be a businessman or businessman on their own, just like someone like me. The youth, we as the businessmen and the government, we have a role to play, and the president has taken over this role himself to show to Nigeria that I can make a difference, and to also to show to the international world that Nigeria is ready to receive you to invest. I believe the youth, they will learn from us, and the youth, now that they are seeing that there are potentials for them, I believe the youth, they will also gain. One important thing that the president did in Qatar, is to admit that, yes, we have talented Nigerians, we have educated, our youth are well educated, they anywhere they go, they do well. I saw one of my secondary school junior in Qatar. He's one of the best orthopedic surgeons in the US. And these are people that are ready to come home to replicate what they have done in the US. And the president also paved way for Nigerians that want to go to Qatar to work, which he has also in other countries that he has visited, to make sure that Nigerians are treated with due respect. If more Nigerians leave the country to go and work outside, there's going to be an inflow into the country, which is going to boost our foreign reserve. So I think the youth, they should take more to do things that will benefit them, rather than for them to follow ignorant people on the social media. The country, myself, I left banking at the age of 30, and I've been outside banking for 19, 20 years now. So the country has a lot of potentials for people like, for the young people, if the young themselves are ready to help. The most important thing is that the president is creating the environment for the youth and for the country to be a prosperous country. We, the youth people, should also do things that will benefit the country and that will benefit them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aliu, for your thoughts, for your contributions today. Thank you so much. We need to take a break now. But before we take the break, maybe we can have 30 seconds each. Oh, okay. Okay. The director is asking us to sign off because of time. Okay, we'll now take a break. We'll be back after. Stay with us. Yeah, welcome back. We still have our guest in the studio, but we need to have their parting shots now. Ambassador Danladi, let's have your parting shots on this conversation.
Well, I think I would like to use this opportunity to call on all Nigerians to support Mr. President's diplomatic dexterity in repositioning Nigeria, as well as also call on the relevant ministries and agencies, especially the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and our diplomatic missions around the globe, to take a cue on Mr. President's aggressive drive to attract foreign direct investment. There should be a standard, and there should be a monitoring and evaluation of the implementation of this agreement, so that it is not put on the shelf and it gathered dust, as was the case in the past.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Okay, Honorable Minister, your parting shot.
Well, I think there is greatness in Nigeria's future, and this president is committed to leading us, and he's leading us in that direction. And now it behooves us, ministries, departments, agencies, to do our part in government, but also the private sector itself to do the hard work to manifest the benefits of this diplomatic, let's say, successes that the president has been leading Nigeria, including the visit to Qatar and many others that he has been doing, some that may not be as visible, so that we manifest this greatness that is in our future.
Okay, Honorable Minister, Professor Ali Pati, Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much.
This early morning. Pleasure
Thank
with him. Ambassador Dauda Danladi, former Nigerian High Commissioner to Pakistan, as always a pleasure to have your insight into conversation in diplomacy. Thank you. And from the UK, Abdul Kabir Aliu, a businessman, joined us. We'll appreciate your input into the conversation, and thank you so much for coming on the program.
Yeah, I think we now take a spotlight on African Development Bank. Stay with us.
Welcome everyone, those who are physically present here and also those who are online.
The PFMA has been running an 18-month structured executive training course.
The African Development Bank is dedicated to mending and filling up Africa's economic bucket with new, increased and strengthened capacity. On a continent where years of a lack of accountability and transparency, corruption and illicit financial flows created a recurring fiscal sinking hole. To address this need, the African Development Bank set up the Public Finance Management Academy for Africa to provide rounded capacity development support to regional member countries in the entire public financial management cycle and ecosystem.
I think this is a great idea to bring together public finance managers across the continent to share experiences and to learn.
Je suis ici dans cette formation pour améliorer mes connaissances en matière de gestion des finances publiques. Comme je travaille en tant que macroéconomiste, je dois savoir à quel point est la gestion des finances publiques de mon pays.
The course, first of all, brought together a network of several public finance managers from all over Africa, which in itself was good for peer learning.
Transparency shines the light for you to see whether individuals are accountable. And who are you accountable to? You are first accountable to the law. Second, you are accountable to the commitments of that process. Thirdly, you are accountable to the people.
If we don't collect data in a structured format, we make it complicated for Mali to even share that data with Zambia, for Zambia to share that data with Botswana. So that's the purpose of using a structured format.
This training has touched on every category and every aspect that is required to help develop public finances in every country.
To tackle corruption, I think I always say we need to focus on 3 S's. The 3 S's, which is systems, sanctions, and society. We need to ensure that we build and strengthen systems that make it hard for corruption to occur.
I'm immensely impressed by the quality and level of spirit of attendance. I see almost all African delegates from all African countries.
The first cohort of trainees have gone through 6 modules of the PFMA's Public Finance Management Executive Training, which started in June of 2022. The 6 modules covered domestic revenue mobilization in Africa, macro-fiscal modeling and forecasting in Africa, prudential public budgeting, debt reporting.
Continue to support this initiative and ensure that we take maximum advantage of the opportunity to strengthen the capacity of our public financial and debt management workforce.
We look forward to a time where all these public financial management experts will apply what they have learned to ensure that they improve and strengthen the framework for public financial management, especially with respect to bridging some of the leakages that we see in our public financial management across African countries.
First of all, I would like to thank the African Development Bank for giving us this opportunity to know more about public financial management. And I would also like to thank the Bank of Zambia for my government for letting me come all the way to Abuja to be part of this ceremony.
So, let's celebrate this pioneering cohort as they domesticate and apply the knowledge they've acquired to their country-specific contexts. Through their efforts, Africa's wealth will stay plugged in Africa and remain effectively managed to achieve the Africa of our dreams.
Everybody's worrying about the existence of the world itself because it's heating up too much. And therefore, one has to really wonder about which part of the world is suffering the most from that heating up of the world. Well, it goes without saying that the part of the world suffering the most is Africa. If you look at the world's vulnerability index, it actually shows that 9 out of the 10 most vulnerable countries in the world are in Africa. And you can see the consequence of that. We have droughts, we have floods, we have cyclones, we're losing infrastructure, we're losing agricultural products, we're losing buildings. You know, countries are running into debt for things that they didn't cause.
Africa is one of the most vulnerable places on Earth to climate change. Yet it accounts for just 3% of global emissions. It is a glaring injustice, deeply felt across this resource-rich continent, that is losing between $7 and $15 billion every year to the widespread impact of global warming.
The global climate financial architecture dedicated to climate finance is failing Africa woefully, because Africa's climate adaptation needs are so massive. Today, Africa gets $11 billion out of the total financing that it needs for adaptation per year, but its needs about 10 times that. That's what I call the baobab approach. You know, you go to Africa, you know, we all have these baobab trees and giant trees, and if you try to hug a baobab tree by yourself, you can't. But if you have hands in the community around the baobab tree, everybody's hand can go around the baobab tree. And so it's very important. Strategic partnerships and alliances are important, you know, to be able to solve big transformative issues. And that's how we are doing it.
Need to close the finance gap, crucial to putting Africa on the path to a sustainable future. Yet Africa is not without hope. Growing international support underlines the recognition that Africa's sustainable future is fundamental to realizing our net zero ambitions and a better tomorrow for all.
I have faith in Africa. I have faith in Africa's youth. I have faith that our future will be a much better future. But we've got to work on many things. We have to make sure we invest in infrastructure. We have to make sure that we can feed ourselves. We got to make sure that we can have electricity. We have to make sure that we can have our regional markets working for us. We have to make sure that we are deploying our capital to unleash the entrepreneurship capacity of our youth. We have to make sure that we are doing all this by mobilizing everybody around us. It comes back to the baobab thing. Never walk alone.
Well, that spotlight on African Development Bank concludes Good Morning Nigeria for today. Thanks for joining us. I am Ademola Adeoye.
And I am Jumoy Yusuf. Join us again tomorrow.